If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place.
Billion globally. That will make 75% workforce by 2025. That will outpace earnings of baby boomers in less than 10 years. Smartphones and tablets are the argument settlers and fact checkers of every conversation. Get more insights on African millennials on Africa Business Radio. Towards a profitable Africa.
S Cool on the beat.
Wow, I mean, it's really getting all heated in Lagos. I don't know about other African countries. What's up, Ghana? What's the traffic like? I mean, I come to you in traffic peace from the coastal city of Lagos in West Africa. It's getting really heated here. I mean, it takes me about 15 minutes to get to the studio. I think it took me about 30 to 35 minutes, and I'm here anyways, and I'm here before 2 o'clock. It's not going to be like that other day that we had to stall a little bit because I thought the lockdown was still heavy. All right, it's Tommy Wale on the African Millennial Radio Show on Africa Business Radio, and I have someone who I've admired for a very long time. I think the first time I maybe had some sort of an encounter, not directly with him, was when he got featured in the CEO magazine in the 2018 class of 2018 edition. Yeah, so I remember then me and Lily were talking about, you know what, let's not put one person on the CEO magazine. Let's talk about people who have been getting things done and we feel would do great things in 2018. And I remember that the first name that came up was your name, right? By the people who go, okay, bye. So I think that was really the first time I tried that. Oh, wow. Nice. I mean, I was very, very encouraged. I was inspired by what I saw. And then since then I started following that. Okay, I want to know how this person is getting his things done. All right. Let me tell you guys about my guest today. Adebayo Oke-Lawal has been designing since the age of 10, right? I want to ask Christian, is it the class designs where everybody draws cartoons, or you actually sat down in your house and then you...
So when I was 10, I had started sketching already, but I sold my designs to a store when I was 10.
Okay, you know what?
So my first sale was when I was 10 years old.
So if you say you have a 10-year anniversary, I want to think it's like a 20-year anniversary or something.
Well, I guess, as a creative designer, yes.
Okay, so let me continue with this. He started Orange Culture in 2011 after having worked with several Nigerian designers. He worked before he started things. Now, to turn his unique vision of fashion into reality, since starting the label, no. After having worked with several Nigerian designers, that is, he now went on to start Orange Academy to turn his unique vision of fashion into reality. Yes. Now, since starting the label and an official runway debut in Lagos Fashion and Design Week in 2011, he has been hard at work trying to showcase Orange culture to the world. The label is more than a clothing line. Adebayo insists it's a movement, and I mean that's very obvious actually. It's a movement that covers universal silhouettes from an African touch to a creative class of men, translating into a heady mixture of Nigerian inspired prints, fabrics, color, and contemporary urban streetwear. I mean, everything that is being defined right now is all about what Orange Culture is. You can check them out on Instagram. That's Orange Culture NG. Yeah. On Instagram, and you can also check the Orange Ned on Instagram also, and see all about what Bio is about, what it does, and you know, you can actually predict what Orange Culture will be like in 50 years from the thing so far. I mean, it's going to be something very, very phenomenal. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Tommy. Thank you.
So, I think it was when Tosin came on the show, Styling Fidel, and we had some conversation like, okay, you know what? I need to have a whole lot of fashion people or fashion entrepreneurs right on the show, because it was I'm a creative, right? I'm a creative entrepreneur, but the conversations just opened up a whole lot more. And that is why I'm really, really happy, to have this one today, because in fact, there's an imaginary note and a pen around. So I'm going to be taking notes a lot. So, let's get it running. Can you give some background to what made you know orange culture had to be created?
So, when I wanted to go into fashion, I always knew I wanted to go into fashion from when I was a young child. Even when I was in school, everyone else would want to go draw cars and draw all sorts of things. I wanted to draw clothes. I wanted to sketch. I wanted to read the magazines that had the best clothes. I was just very drawn to the idea of clothing and how it was made. So I always knew I wanted to go into fashion, but I just wasn't sure as a child and as a teenager what kind of fashion I wanted to create. I knew that when I looked at fashion, especially here, there was a gap in terms of the kind of clothing that was being made. Everything sort of fit a specific box. So all the clothing was made to suit a specific man, a specific type of man. And so when I wanted to buy clothes that I felt were sort of an expression of who I was or who I felt I was becoming, I couldn't really find that in the market. So when I wanted to start my own brand, I was like, you know what, I'm not gonna do what everyone says sells. I'm not going to find the easy way out and say, just make the kaftans, which are all great and good suits. Amazing. But I wanted to find ready to wear that was edgy and fun and, sort of a new narrative of what Nigerian fashion could be. And so obviously when I started my own brand, I wasn't going to ignore that gap. I was I'm going to focus on creating clothing that the man that I am and the many men that might be like me, might want to experience. And so not just falling in line with what existed, but creating a new narrative, creating a new normal, and creating a new fashion experience. So that really led to orange culture for me. And the story just really came from this idea of, when I was younger and just being bullied for sort of how I expressed my masculinity or gender in quotes was always being put to question. And so for me, it was if I'm going to create a brand, I need to create a brand that pushes against that stereotype that I felt I had experienced growing up. And so I didn't want to just create a brand that was just about clothing. I wanted to create a brand that was, effectively creating some sort of change and effectively communicating a story and a narrative. And so that's basically how orange culture came about to be this brand that is pushing this new narrative.
That's some motivation. I think for me it was while I was in uni, I was made the head of the media department of the church I attended. And the person, in fact, the last 3 guys who had headed that team, right, left huge shoes for me. When I was called to come be that, I didn't know jack. I didn't know what tool to use to draw a line in Photoshop or anything. I didn't know any printer. So I think what happened was we had strike in OAU. And then I just went back home. It was 2009. Took my dad's laptop at the time. And all through that 4 months, I was just trying all manner of things. Right. So all of that just pushed me also to me now doing what I'm doing right now. So that's the strong motivation. I could really connect with it. Right. From, you know what? It's your show, not my show. I knew there was going to be some connect. I could go on and on, from what you just said right now. Now, in pushing this stereotype in this environment, right, we know how things can be, in this our climb. Can you share practical examples or maybe some scenarios of how you were able to break some doors down and made sure that you actually owned the room?
So, I think, first of all, when we launched the brand, just the sort of pushback we got, especially when we launched the first collection, we got a lot of negative feedback. Not negative feedback about what we're doing, but negative feedback about how we were doing it. So people were like, oh, why are you putting... I remember then it was we put a man in a red suit, and people were so angry that there was a man in a red suit, and people were so upset that, we were trying to put men in color and all these things. And so at that time, it was this whole thing. Obviously now everybody's wearing color, so it doesn't matter anymore. But then it was what are you doing? You're doing this, you're pushing this. This is not the African man. And so there were all these different narratives. And so the first practical thing that I did was to continue on, despite the fact that everybody was pushing back. So it was taking the first step to say, you know what, that's not, all of the things that you've said, I've heard, but doesn't matter to what it is that I'm trying to do, and is the reason why I'm having this conversation in the first place. Because if this narrative, if this change, if this new sort of like expression is so, something that you're so apprehensive to listen to or to adhere to, then there's clearly a problem, because there isn't one way that a man is supposed to be, or one narrative of a man. There's so many different expressions. So if all of you are pushing back against this, then there's clearly a reason for this conversation to be happening. So that was literally the first thing. And then obviously, also the way we communicate the brand as well, in terms of visuals, in terms of stories, in terms of films, shoots, whatever it is that we do, we're very intentional about how we express it and how we put it out there, because at the end of the day, every form of communication is a tool to use to express your story and express your narrative. So we were using every tool that we had to express that exact narrative that we're trying to push out. So even the stories we were telling, the lookbooks we were doing, everything was highly intentional. It wasn't about, just selling a shirt and being done with that. It was about selling a lifestyle, selling a story, and selling a pushback against what we had known as to what we think the world deserves to be. And so it was just a whole space of liberation. And so all of those actions, all of those intentional actions were really practical decisions that we had made to really push for it. And also the kind of things that we do as well, even till now. Every time we travel, every opportunity we get to speak in large rooms, every talk I get to do, like when we did Design That, when we did the conversation in South Africa, and even in New York, and all these places that I go to, when I'm having these conversations, these are conversations that people are listening to. And so every time someone is emailing me, say, this story I heard, I can relate to this, I can relate to that, I can relate to not being able to express myself to my dad, or having a lack of emotionality or vulnerability when it comes to relating myself to my family, or to my siblings, or whatever the case is. And so this whole idea of expressing vulnerability when you're a man really was a huge conversation, a huge starter. So having those conversations in all the different social spaces was really a practical way to put it out there, and using all of the communications we had, visually, musically, whatever the case was, to also communicate that was really practical moves that we made to really push the narrative.
I mean, can I get bank account details so I can pay for this session, man? Because it's hitting. Do you get what I'm saying? It's hitting because I'm seeing it in different ways. It's coming in different ways. So the person over there who is trying to get her business going, to the dude over there who is trying to get out of 9 to 5, and everybody's just trying to break through something. And we can pick lessons from everything you've said right now and apply it to our lives, and it will still hit relevance more than ways we could ever think of. So you can't go alone, right? You need maybe someone who would listen to you at 1:37 a.m. when you can actually think through things and you just want to talk, right? Of course, you don't want to talk to the wrong person. How important, or what importance do you place on relationships as regards what you've done and the future?
I think a huge part of business is really relationships and networking, especially when it comes to expansion. I feel like when you start off, obviously you start off alone, because that's just, if you're lucky, you start off, but I started off alone because of what I was doing and because of how I was going about my business. And so at first it was just me alone, trying to figure things out, trying to take the steps I needed to take on my own. But obviously as time went on, I was able to connect the dots to other people within the supply chain and within the industry and further. And all of those people have been people who have been beneficial to the path that I've taken in terms of opening doors for me. Some have just helped elevate me. Some have created seats for me on tables that I never imagined that I would be on. And so when you keep relationships help you expand and open doors for you. And also relationships help you to sort of fine tune your pathway, because there are people who will be there to also advise you, and people who will be there to say, okay, when you're going this way, I've been there, so maybe do this way. And so relationships have really helped me sharpen my path and sharpen my direction, because at first when I started, there were lots of things that I thought I wanted to do, or I thought this was the right way to do it, but because of other designers or because of people in finance or people in, the creative space who don't even work in fashion but have advised me, I've been able to learn from their mistakes and also build on them as well. And also people who have just been there to push for me in places where I wasn't even present. And I feel like when you create good relationships really help you in places that you don't even know that you're going to be in. There are people who will fight for you because of the relationships that they have with you. And so when opportunities come, they're there saying, oh, I know this guy, you should talk to him. I know this person, he has this talent. I know that person. And so relationships really are a push for you and take you steps further a lot quicker than if you were doing it alone. So it's a stronger journey and a quicker journey when you have people that have your back and you have people that help shape you and help sort of push you. When you're alone, it's a lot slower and it's a lot more lonely. And it's better off when it's not lonely because then you enjoy it more. So it's nicer to have people that have your back, support you, and are there for you. And I'm so thankful because now I have that. Now I have the full support of my family and I have people in the industry that I can call on when I need help or when I need advice here out of Nigeria. And so I've built all of these relationships that have helped really push Orange culture to where it is today and where it's definitely going.
I mean, I'm really, really happy about that, right? I know there are a whole lot of people who need that push. Sometimes I just think about someone and I just reach out to the person and then they come back saying that, well, I actually needed that, right? And I think what really inspired that for me was a couple of people that I've lost, right? And I still feel bad that I didn't reach out to this person and I don't have the opportunity anymore. That's true. Once I think about the person, I just do it. And then the way they come back and like, thank you for that, I'm like, we really need ourselves. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, that's really good. Now, I was having a conversation with Jimmy Jat and then he started breaking down how government policy and especially technology made Nigeria transition from the Western music on the mainstream to what we have with the Afro right now. So he said, for example, when the CDs came, right, DJs could now do 50% Nigerian music and 50%. Before it was vinyl and a Nigerian artist couldn't afford to put his song on vinyl. He could only do cassettes and he couldn't really DJ with cassettes, pause play and all of that. So he said technology came, right? Government policy also helped when the government said, you know what, on radio, on airways, number one, they can be independent radio stations. Secondly, it has to be, I think, 70% or 80% indigenous content. So that's increased, things. And then fast forward, the maybe MTVs and everything came and the guys like P-Square, Mohit and everybody now really made it cool, especially music videos and all of that. So technology government policy came. Now, I want to ask, I think 2015 was really a defining year when it has to do with the use of the internet in our times, right? So everybody moved from the Blackberries to the very, very smartphones. Right, people could now stream music in Niger and things like that. With your brand, right, can you talk about how technology or the internet and the platforms has helped, transition your brand from that Lagos brand to the global brand that it is right now?
I think social media has been really key to how the brand has really expanded its reach. I feel like, prior to, we had to, use like brick and mortar forms of advertising, but now you have social media that allows you access to countries that you may never even visit because it's like this open, it's like this open playground where people from China, from, America, from all these different places are there looking for, the next content that engages them or something that, fills up their time. And so for us, social media really opened us up to customers all over. Now we have customers in like Czech Republic, we have customers in Russia. So you have all these people who on social media are just clicking and like, I know this, I see this brand, I want to follow them. And so they click on you and they follow you and then they engage you. And also opens us up to magazines. We've had editors who have, engaged us through Instagram, through DMs. We've had, collaborators who have DM'd us. We've had musicians who have said, I want to wear your stuff through social media. So it opens this door up, that before where would have had to pay thousands of dollars to get international PR to connect to all these people. Now, if you're putting out the right content, if you're putting out the engaging content, things that people want to see, you can access all of these people for free just through social media. So it really took us from being a Nigerian brand that Nigeria didn't understand at the time to a brand that the global industry understood and then made popular. And then Nigeria had to accept, which is the honest, the honest thing. Yeah. So it really was an opening for us. And that's why with social media, we aren't, we don't necessarily follow the same route everyone is following, so we might not have, millions of followers, but we have followers who have been there with us they're followers who don't even like,
brand
but
realist.
They literally are buying, they're like, they will DM me and say, I want this now, I need this now. So we've been able to use social media to really create relationships with an international audience, and engage an international audience, update an international audience, announcements on it. It's basically just become a space for us to be personal and personable with our customers and with the press and with the whole world that's listening.
And I'm sure that's affected the books too in a very, very positive way.
Of course, it always does. Yeah, it always does.
Everything, anyways. Right. African millionaire entrepreneurs. I think I'm really drawn towards African millionaire entrepreneurs because I saw what happened with Black Panther. I think Black Panther sold off conversations of African millennials globally, and it's the third highest. No, that's it now. We were happy, yay! And then it's the third highest grossing movie in Hollywood. So we have some Jews right there, and I think African millionaire entrepreneurs should, do some more work as regards our conversations. Now, can you talk about the potential we have in owning global brands and businesses right now as African millennials?
I think right now it's more poignant than any time because now everyone is like looking to Africa. Everyone is looking to the black community. Everyone's looking to Africa right now, especially more than ever before, because of obviously the social consciousness of what's happening in, America, especially with race and everything. So everyone's looking to say, okay, what is happening within the black community and how can we support the black community? And so right now more than ever, it's important for people to take up this mantle, to push their businesses and put them in the light and create tables for black businesses to thrive. Because now we have the support. Before we didn't have the support. Before, to get a black brand in the room or to get black voices to be heard, you'd have to fight and fight and fight. Not that we don't have to fight now, but we'd have to fight a lot harder. Not to say, not locally, but I mean internationally, you'd have to fight a lot more than your white correspondents would have to. I've been in rooms before where I've been the only black person many times, and you're there, but you're almost unsettled because you're like, I'm here, but why am I the only black person here? Why am I the only African that has ever had this opportunity? And you have all this. I've been in rooms where I would ask for black models and they would only offer me white models. And so now it's a time where those conversations are out there and people are questioning racial discrimination and asking why these things have been happening for decades. And so now more than ever, with everything that's happening and with the conversations that's happening and with the support, whether superficial or momentary or temporary, whatever the case is, we have people who are willing to say, okay, let me put the money on you and say, okay, let me put my support on you. Let me put this on you. And so right now, everyone needs to understand that if you have a business idea or if you feel like you want to create a global business, this is the right time to push for it. And also in Nigeria right now, a lot of things are changing. And so before where I don't want to say it that way, but actually in Nigeria where, the creative industry has not been getting support from government, still isn't, maybe music, yes, but fashion is definitely not getting that support. And a lot of other aspects of the creative industry are not getting that support. There are lots of private individuals who are asking about these industries and investors from other countries. I've been in meetings in the past couple of weeks in meetings with Americans, with the people from all over the place, from black communities who are asking, what do you need to thrive as a black business in Africa? And so right now there's a lot of discussions around how can we push the black community forward in industries all over, whether it's fashion, whether it's music, whatever the case is. And so right now is the time to be present so that when those opportunities come and those platforms are you have something on the table that you can use to engage those platforms. And so really right now more than ever it's a good time. And also opportunities are coming. So just don't lose on those opportunities. And Nigeria is one of the few places where barriers to entry are so low, especially for the creative industry, where in other countries you'd have to have so much capital, you'd have to have all of these different things to enter the industries. But here the barriers are so low, and so you can literally build a business on the jump if it's something that you're really passionate about. And so right now, just take up that mantle and push for it. It might be difficult. Business is always going to be difficult, whether creative, whether non-creative. Even when somebody gives you money to invest in your business, it still has its difficulties. Talk less of the industries where we don't have the financial support, especially not from our leaders. So right now more than ever, where the opportunities are being shaped for us and the spaces that are being created for us to have a voice and to uplift our platforms, is the right time to push for your business, and it's the right time to shape your narrative to ensure that you fall in line with what is necessary right now and the gaps that we need to fill, so that indeed when the time comes for these things to flourish, you're actually present enough to enjoy the flourish.
Man, offerings to the left. Feel like I'm in some. I mean, I was dead on. Sorry, producer. We're supposed to have a break at some point. Can we do it, or we should just wrap it up and then we do the break after? Because I'm really enjoying this. I don't want to have a break at all. I have 5 minutes to go. Thank you very much. We're supposed to have a break about 15 minutes into the conversation, but I mean, I just kept enjoying this, man. Right. So, now, there's something about the guys that are between 17 and 22. I mean, those dudes are creative, and they're not creative with the type of creative that they have to maybe go and stay beside someone and learn. These guys are taking these things into their own hands and learning themselves and putting things out there. I mean, I always just make a reference to this girl called Amaka Money. I'll show you her designs. I mean, our UX when we're done after the show is Ami Designs. She learnt it by watching. She learns UI UX by watching YouTube videos. She's, I think, 20 or 21. Wow. I'll show you. You get what I'm saying? Now, these people have a whole lot of energy. Businesses right now are especially in Africa, are now realizing that, you know what, the ways we did businesses a decade of days ago is not how we would do it in this decade. Anything can happen, right? Now, this younger generation seems to be the unserious ones. Now, from everything you are, especially from the creative side of you, looking at this generation, how do you think businesses can leverage the energies and the ingenuity of these guys to take their business further?
I mean, I think more than ever, especially the new generation that's coming behind, like you rightfully said, there's a whole lot of creativity that has been, expressed. A lot of them are, even the way they make music, for example, is so amazing. I always say that if you look at the Odunsis and the Santis and all of them, they're creating music that is sustainable and music that will last. You know what I mean? It's not just, a hit that's going to enter some club and then wash out after like a few weeks. It's music that people would want to nominate for awards in, countries all over. So people in the newcomers that are coming are creating sustainable ventures, and are creating new pathways for themselves and breaking boundaries with what they're doing. And so what I find with companies is that they don't really know how to relate with that. It's like they don't know how to engage that. It's, there are lots of young people that we should be collaborating with, we should be hiring, we should be bringing into our businesses and infusing what they have into what it is that we're doing. Because at the end of the day, no business can survive on being one-dimensional from the start to the finish. Everyone has to be changing and growing with the times. And so these young people who are showing their talents and showing their skills should be brought into these companies and given the platforms as well to push the change that your company needs. And that's why you find brands like, IKEA and all these people collaborating with young people. Even, tech companies are collaborating with young people because they know that we need them to survive and we need them to be where it is that, the world is now and where the world is going.
Have you guys heard? Or should we rewind that? The podcast is going to be available after this. Listen to that last part very well. Mr. Austin Okere would say that put the young people in the boardrooms. They can be seen and not heard, right? But then let them stay there. So if anything comes, just like, what do you think? Right? They will be able to know if what you're saying is actually relevant with time or not. Jimmy Jatt is entering his 4th decade. I really like him because we sit down and we talk a lot and he breaks things down and he says that, his friends right now at the people who are 17 to 22 right now, because he needs to respect time. You understand? So that he can harness the blessings of the time and then, use it to pass on his legacy.
Yeah,
but then if you think, we that we've been doing this thing for 20 years, who are you?
Yeah, even my team, most of my team are young, amazing talents. Annie, Anu, Ikena, they're so sick and so, they literally make me feel like I don't know what I'm doing. So they bring like a freshness to the company. I love that so much.
Tosin said that he even has them around so that he can learn.
Yeah.
Not necessarily because he wants to teach them. I mean, it's
exactly.
Please, you can't use the pro knowledge of horse riding to determine the sustainability of the invention of a car. It's on my website on the second to the last page. So go on tomiwale.com and you see that there. I won't say it again because of time. Bayo, thank you so much for coming.
No problem.
On the show. I mean, so your Instagram again is the Orange Nerd.
Yeah, that's my personal.
That's your personal Instagram page. I think you should follow. Then the business is
Orange Culture NG.
Orange Culture NG. I mean, maybe sometimes in the comments, right? Even if you think the DMs might be too much, you can just throw a question at him or actually send him a DM. I think Bayo is open enough to answer genuine questions, right? I mean, let's have a very, very beautiful decade ahead of us, and I'm happy that people like Bayo are taking things, off the edge, or I say now. I used to say on the edge, but then let's create more things than what we've always done. Thank you very much. All right, guys. It's Tomi Wale on the African Millennial Radio Show, and we have to go right now. We have someone very interesting coming on Friday to talk about the importance of brand inclusion. That's going to be a very interesting topic. All right. Thank you. Don't forget to go on africabusinessradio.com and check out the podcast, the African Millennial Radio Show, to listen to past editions. Bayo's edition is also going to be available before Friday, and then you can share as much as possible. Play it at dinner, play it at breakfast, play it at brunch, right? Please stay safe, guys. Very, very important. Stay safe, and you don't have to always go out, I think. Have a nice afternoon. Bye.
Bye.